Warning, the following audio transmission is based on theory and is intended for entertainment purposes only. It's Doomsday and its affiliates will not be held liable for anything your dumbass does. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everybody, to It's Doomsday podcast. Today is Monday, January 12th, and joining me today is Local Prepper. Hello. So last week's episode, you guys got to hear Local Prepper's backstory a little bit of how he got into preparedness and his 3 pillars of preparedness and all the things. And he did let me out of the basement, by the way, because here I am.
Just put some bacitration on those zip tie wounds that you got there.
Oh, I will. And by the way, I appreciate the slices of bologna passed underneath the door. That was a nice touch.
Yes.
It was good. You know, he did take care of me, ladies and gentlemen, while I was down there.
You got to fry that bacon.
Right. Good luck eating a sandwich without your hands. It's very difficult.
You got this. Man.
So, on this week's episode, and some of you may have heard this before, in past episodes, but how I got into prepping, what led me to become a prepper, survivalist, homesteader person, how I came to this conclusion in life, how I ended up at this, I don't know what you would call this, because it's kind of a dead-end thing. It's a never-ending thing. You didn't end up here. You're still on this road, right?
Correct, yeah.
So I guess you could say why I'm still driving down this chaotic road of prepping. So I grew up in the backwoods of Pennsylvania, okay? And I grew up on a crappy little horse ranch in a rural community. Now, we were kind of living a very different lifestyle there for starters, just based on area. Like, we didn't have a city water connection. Mm-hmm. We didn't have city septic or anything. So we had a very weird disposal system for water where we had our main septic tank. And then we had a gray water area, which eventually evolved from a runoff to a pit in the ground as I got older to catch all of the gray water.
Wow.
So we were never on public services. As far as water went, our water supply, we had a well and we had a cistern. So we were collecting rainwater since I came along, right? Mm-hmm. We were collecting rainwater. And we had a lot of different procedures for water around the house. Like, you couldn't flush the toilet while the well was on because the well wasn't a good well. And once the well depleted its 5-gallon pressure tank, it would shut off till it rebuilt pressure again, which would take a while, right?
Gotcha.
So there was all these different methods of saving water for toilet flushing, like saving water from the bathtub or switching from the well to the cistern in order to flush the toilet tank. And the generalized rule of, if it's yellow, leave it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. You remember hearing that shit? So
yeah. Those are the rules on ship.
Those are the rules
when water's limited.
Right. So that was how we kind of just lived the day-to-day normal. Along with that, we had a central furnace for heat in the house. However, certain rooms in the house were not ducted for heat, so they stayed really cold. Mm-hmm. Like my parents' room, my bedroom, a couple other rooms in the house did not have central ventilation because they were built as add-ons to the house that were essentially on top of concrete slabs.
Yeah.
So there was no way to run heating and cooling. Right. So my dad kind of had the prerogative of this. Well, we're paying for heating oil to only heat about half the house. So why are we doing this? And in turn, we ran a wood burner for heat all of the time. So now you're into the idea of just basic things people do in the event of an apocalyptic scenario, like the conserving of the water and firewood for heat is basically how we lived normally. So we would basically have the heat set just good enough to where the house wouldn't freeze if we weren't home. It was always set to like 40 degrees. And we compensated with heat with the wood burner. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, in the event of, I found out very quickly how fortunate we were during when I was young, we had ice storms and snowstorms being in that part of the nation. And we would lose power for 3 days a week, maybe a week and a half, 4 days here in the wintertime when it's 30 degrees out and it's snowing. So, of course, the wood burner became our primary cooking source.
Yeah.
And canned goods became all the rage in that moment because you could dump a bunch of them in a pot, put them on the wood stove, and now you have a stew, a soup, a chili, a something, right?
Yeah.
So we had these little apocalyptic events that would take place when I was a kid, so much so to where the power's out. Well, we could take the lid off the cistern tank, put a 5-gallon bucket in there, and we can bucket out water, and we could heat it up on the stove for bathing. And these were just things that we did growing up that I thought were normal, and in adulthood I realized are not so normal. Like, none of my other friends grew up having to bucket water out of a tank to go take a bath, right?
Yeah.
So very odd as I'm seeing growing up now, but happy I had those experiences because I appreciate what I had today. Now, with all these things I said, that has no reason why, that has nothing to do with me being a prepper, okay?
Okay.
Nothing. This is what led me down the road of prepping. So, my dad was the type of person that liked to do everything very last minute, like day before. So I talked about how we use the wood burner for heat, right?
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't worried about chopping firewood or stocking it for the winter until we had snow on the ground, until we had freezing temperatures. Like, oh, it's starting to freeze outside. The furnace set at 40 degrees isn't going to do it anymore. We had a few days of frost. Now we got snow. We better go get that firewood.
Yeah.
So we could have been doing this in preparation all summer, and we did not. We did it
Whole time.
the whole time. We could have had this stocked up, but we didn't. But then in the reverse side of the spectrum, it worked the same way the other way. Like we didn't have central AC. We just had central heat.
Yeah.
So we would put out window shakers in the summer times, but they didn't go out till August, end of July. Like, after we've already had 90-degree days, 80-degree days, the paint sweating off the wall for a month, toward the end of summer, then he would decide, okay, it's time to put these in.
Yeah.
Right? But there were things my father did in preparation that, like, to this day don't make sense. Like, we did buy a couple things in bulk as a kid. And those two things we bought in bulk were toilet paper and paper towels. We were never without toilet paper and paper towels. Why those were two staples in our house that we always had in bulk that we never ran out of, I'll never know to this day. But maybe he saw the writing on the wall somewhere. Maybe it was like, well, we can get wood whenever. We could get water, however. You're not going to die if it's 80 degrees in the house, but by God, if the toilet paper sells out, we're screwed. Maybe that's where his mind was. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So, needless to say, his shortcomings led me into preparation, wanting to be ahead of the game and not last-minuting things, right?
Yeah.
And with the things that I learned over the years growing up in that house, kind of gave me a little bit of an advantage learning, how to move water in very weird ways, learning how to do plumbing. What do you do when the power's out? How do you get the water? How do you heat the water? How do you cook without the power? These were all things I learned at a very young age. And then this kind of leads into the road of getting involved in the Scouts and doing a lot of camping and a lot of little survival exercises and a lot of off-grid cooking and all the things that come with that, learning how to use a Dutch oven and just all of the things. I mean, we were making musket balls out of lead at Boy Scout camp. So we did a lot. Like my scout troop was very, very good when it came to actually getting us out there to do things. Because I see the troops nowadays and they don't do jack shit. Like, they can't get organized. But back then, they were very organized and they were really on top of getting things done.
Yeah.
So as I got older, things have transitioned a lot. And I then started seeing the writing on the wall as far as shortcomings with our nation. Started learning more about supply chains. Started learning more about how quickly items can devalue, how quickly food expires, what they're putting in the food. Started learning more about how fragile our current currency is. Started learning all of these different aspects, right? And then it really pushed me over the edge. I would say, always definitely into the survivalist stuff, into the bushcraft stuff, like into all that growing up, but did not start considering myself a prepper until about, I don't know, maybe about 10 years ago, maybe like 2016, something like that. Because then it was just the writing was on the wall, and it's like, okay, we need to stock ammo, we need to stock this, we need to stock food, we need to stock, just everything, because shit's gonna hit the fan, right? And it was right around. Well, actually, I take it back. It was further than 10 years ago, because I bought this property in 2016 when the election hit, and by then I was full on into it. By then, and coming forward more, learning more what I know now, like working in the medical field and being a first responder in regards to the medical side of things, it has drastically changed everything for me, because you're not just preparing anymore for all out disaster or a collapsed economy or an invasion. You're now preparing for what happens if I'm in the woods and I get injured and I can't get out. What happens if I'm out here with a wood saw and I puncture a femoral? Like, so there's a whole new set of preps that are just in real daily life now. And especially seeing what I see running calls. I mean, when you run a call where a guy's got a saw stuck in his neck, it really makes you think about how quickly life goes from good to suck.
Yeah.
So, and that brings us to today.
So you had some great calls today, huh?
Actually, I didn't really have any good calls today. Like nothing very, very exciting, which is good. That means that nothing too bad happened in our area. But I don't know, going, just kind of backtracking here and like thinking about how we grew up. We kind of grew up semi off grid, right?
Yeah.
And
that's the way it sounds.
Right. And you're also talking in an era where you didn't have, like, we didn't have cable TV when I was little. We didn't have, we didn't have internet. We didn't have these things. Eventually, as I got older, we eventually got a satellite dish, eventually. So we had like some TV channels other than the rabbit ears on top of the TV. And eventually we ended up getting cable because it was probably when I was like, I don't know, 17, 16 years old, they finally like ran cable through our area.
Yeah.
Something like that. So we had that, but we did for a little while there before the cable came through, we were able to access dial-up internet. So, but when I was growing up like little, the only connection we had was a phone line and an electric bill. And all of these things, and something else that takes me back to, the prepper side of this now is like we have 4 gas generators and 3 solar generators. And growing up, we didn't have one. Like you would think in an area like just how we were set up, needing electric to run the well, needing electric to run the water pumps and all of these things, you would have thought my father would have been like, hey, we should get a generator. That would have been a very logical thing to do, would be, hey, we have to get a generator because when this power goes out, we're really boned here. But that wasn't a thought. It was kind of just a thought of like, oh, this is nice. It's quiet. The lights are out. It's dark. We still have what we need. We'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that was probably a lot of his mentality was like, well, we're not dying, so it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, you're a parent yourself now, and sometimes it's all about like just doing what you can do when you can do it. Having
right.
the forethought to like, hey, maybe we should have some more firewood. Hey, maybe we should have a generator. Kind of like learning from the things that you grew up with, and I think that actually just makes people a little bit better, as all.
Right. And then there was, I think that another thing that kind of like, and I don't want to say because this is such a generalized thing. Like we went out in the woods a lot and we hunted a lot when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Right. And these preppers out there that think they are solely going to hunt for food, they are high as a kite.
It's a huge mistake.
It's you can't. And growing up, and this is probably why I stock a lot of food stocks, is because I could tell you, I've sat in the woods more days and haven't seen anything than days I have seen things. And I've spent more time walking out of the woods empty-handed than I have dragging out a deer,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's a lot of time invested into actually going out and hunting for food. There's a lot. And then you have a lot of these guys that talk about snare traps and doing the trapping, although can be successful and you don't have to be out there, things still have to get stuck in your traps.
Mm-hmm.
So, right, there's still that chance. So you might invest time into setting traps and come back empty-handed for a week before you get something. And, going a week without food, that's going to take a toll on your body. So I would much rather say, hey, I've got food to last me for X amount of months. The power's good. The house is secure. Everybody knows what's going on. I know we're going to run out of food now. So, let me put the time in now in securing proteins from the wilderness. Also, and this is something else, like we garden growing up, the people that put all their faith in emergency seed banks. That is another thing that's a bit asinine because things take time to harvest. Like, what are you going to do for that 90-day time period from when you plant this seed to when you can harvest? If you don't have a plan in the interim for that, you are going to starve. And then you also have to think about the idea that you have to be able to store whatever till next planting season.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be saving those seeds and germinate them for the next harvest. You have to be able to store the things you grew throughout the winter to sustain you till the spring, till you can plant again. So it's kind of a crapshoot whenever you think about, we don't live this way anymore. Not everybody has a pressure canner. Not everybody has a root cellar. Not everybody's got 300 mason jars laying around. This is not common practice anymore. So the amount of work you need to do for self-sustainability is a job in itself when it comes to that regard. And that's something I learned growing up, because we had canners in our area and we did the garden and we did these things. And I could tell you what our garden produced every year was not enough to get us through the winter. You need a pretty substantial garden to do that.
Yeah, so, most gardens don't do it, to be honest with you. Most gardens are just whatevers. They're not growing enough food to can for the rest of the year until the next spring, that's for sure.
Now, you got to think about it. The people that were very successful at this, that were sustaining themselves through winter, this was their job. It was the farmer, the farmer's family, and his wife and kids that were, working the land, harvesting things, preserving them for the winter, whether they were pressure canning or whatever. But then this is their job. So they were making a profit off the fruits and vegetables and things that they sold. Right.
Yeah.
So it became, this is what we do for work. This is all profit. Our leftovers from profit, basically what is in excess is what we survive on and survive on through the winter. Right. And a lot of the times there were other things mixed in with that. That farmer had chickens and hogs and cows and other, things to sustain protein. So you didn't have, the farmer wasn't working 40 hours a week, coming home, tending the garden for 20 minutes while the wife was at her job, the kids were in school, and then finding time to go hunt. Times have changed a lot. So all of these things I've seen growing up have put me exactly where I am today, as far as you need to have the survival food, but you need to have enough 22LR to go grocery shopping in the woods, and you need to have the generator. But if we run out of gas, the solar backup's going to be pretty decent, and kind of, I guess, learn to prioritize. Like, I've learned to prioritize these things over the years. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, 100%. Because you've lived it. That's the I hate to say it, but that's really the big thing. It's people that have lived this. They understand what the requirements are. So many people get into preparedness, don't understand the requirements.
Right. Like I got one friend who he just had went out, and he has kind of a homestead-ish situation now. He's doing the turkeys and the chickens, and he's doing the different things, but he had a lot of mentality that suggested that, I don't really need to stock up on anything. I'm just going to go the bushcraft route and survive in the woods. And it's like, what happens if shit hits the fan in the middle of the winter and you have nothing to forage for?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're going to find yourself rolling logs over all day to find grubs and bugs and things. There's nothing fresh growing.
Yeah.
You're going to be, raking snow back all day to try to figure out what moss is edible.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's nothing happening for you in the middle of winter. Right.
It's true. And the other thing too is a lot of people that have the hunter's mentality are not thinking past the modern hunter's mentality. And in the modern age, hey, there's tags, and there's only so many animals that get taken. And when people start to get hungry, those tags aren't going to mean anything, and people will just start shooting everything that moves out there, and then there'll be nothing.
Right. Because and I know people say this all the time, but there's a gun behind every blade of grass in America. So that means everybody's going to go out there and try to fend for themselves in the wilderness and take whatever they can. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you start thinking to that aspect of, well, first off, that's going to drastically reduce the protein population that's within the wilderness. So your plan of long-term sustainability has just went down because everybody's going to have the same idea. And then the second thing is how hard is it going to be to hunt these areas with a bunch of other people moving through these areas, right? Because just because this guy works a regular 9 to 5 and he goes to the grocery store every day doesn't mean he's not capable of walking a mile into the woods into your hunting area, not knowing that you're there and taking your deer from you or spooking your deer before you get a chance to shoot them.
Yeah.
So that's also a thing. But one of my big things is, and this is why I preach. One reason I preach a survival food so much is that if I'm out in the woods shopping for a deer, who's securing the rest of my shit? So the more time I spend out there, the more time my preps remain unsecured at home. That's the problem. And even if somebody's back here and can radio me and say, hey, Dooms, we have a problem. If I'm 15 minutes out, a hell of a lot could happen in 15 minutes. They could load up a truckload worth of shit and be out of there, and I'd never even see them.
That's right.
So, I mean, how much time do you really want to devote to being out there in the middle of the woods, not at your house, not where you can watch your stuff securely? How much time do you want to be out there? That's the big thing. And I'm not one of these, and I go back to this idea too. Over the years, also doing what I do, I'm like very against the bug out side of things. I'm a very bug in person, not a bug out person. Like you don't bug out unless there's shots coming at your front door.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason you bug out is because you can't hold the place anymore. It's just not safe to be there anymore.
Right.
It's the bottom line is your bug in location is where all your stuff is.
Right. And the idea of trying to live out of a backpack is a very dumb idea. I'm not saying there isn't people out there that could do it and wouldn't thrive, but it is a very, very difficult thing to do physically, mentally, everything. It is just not sustainable. And even these guys that build like the I'm never coming home bags, where it's not a bug out bag anymore, but they've built a bag with the intent of I'm never returning. Even in that case, they're not packing a grocery store, a pharmacy, there's no resupply. So once you're out there, you better be damn ready to live off the land. You better have brought your pioneer book with you, because that's what you're going to be in for.
And you better not make a single mistake, or it's over.
Right. So what's really funny is, and I'm not talking anything bad about anybody that makes this kind of content, but if you look at a lot of the guys out there on the internet that are doing the bushcraft content, a lot of them have a common theme. I bought this knife from this company. I purchased this auger tool to do woodworking from this company. I picked up this hatchet from blah, blah, blah.com. You guys should get one. So they've all had to go out. The common theme here is they've all had to go out and purchase these items to be effective in the bushcraft realm. Right. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, if they did not possess these items originally, they would not be doing these things. They wouldn't be able to make the content they had. What I'm trying to say is their skill set relies off the tools in their pocket. And if you don't have those tools, you're not going to be effective. Mm-hmm. There's very few bushcrafters out there that I see making bow and arrow straight from a pocket knife, right?
Yeah.
There's very few guys out there like that who could actually go out and survive on this bushcraft skill set. But, it's a great way to sell books. It's a great way to sell a product. It's a great way to sell a knife or a hatchet or an auger. right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I could tell you this because growing up, doing the Boy Scout thing, everybody says, oh, you can just rub 2 sticks together to make a fire. Do you know what a pain in the ass that is?
Yeah, I do, actually.
If you have a good wood bow and good tinder, it is a feasible, doable thing. But you're burning like a Big Mac's worth of calories trying to get that fire going. And if it doesn't get going, now you're wore out. Now you're tired, hungry, and cold. So now you're screwed, right? So there's a reason why we carry the fire starters and the things that we do. Like there's a specific reason for it. It's because nobody wants to be out there rubbing sticks together all day doing this crazy, castaway caveman shit.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work.
Not in the modern world. I mean, you can listen, man. When I went through my survival training, they said, pay attention. I'm going to teach you something that's going to save your life. This is how you start a fire in the jungle. And he pulled out a Bic lighter and he lit a cotton ball. And he said, you can have these when you learn how to make fire with these sticks. So there's a lot to be said for just using a little bit of common sense versus trying to become, I don't know, Bear Grylls or whatever.
Right. And, we have kind of streamlined things. Like I'll never knock the cotton balls and Vaseline. Like I'll never knock that stuff. But when you think about like the technology we have today with the fire starters that have came out, like ones that you could relight and put out, then relight and put out, and they only take a spark to get going. You know what I mean? And, we have magnesium rods now that are attached to ferro rods. Like we have all these different aspects of technology and they're fantastic. And if you guys have never tried to get a fire going with just a ferro rod, that is even still very difficult to do if you don't have something like the cotton ball and Vaseline or like a commercialized fire starter. It's very difficult to do. It's not an easy process. So these are all things we've learned over the years that made us evolve to who we have become on this prepper road. Yeah. But that's all I got, man. You got anything else you want to add?
No, today was all about you.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm glad. I needed the attention.
As he strokes the back of his head. It's okay. It's okay.
It's okay. It's good. You did a good job.
Good job.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you back here on the next episode of Doomsday Podcast. It's Doomsday Podcast. We'll see you back here next Monday.
Bye-bye.
This is an emergency action message. At approximately 1 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, NORAD is tracking 15 ICBM nuclear missiles inbound to the following cities: Orlando, Miami, Pittsburgh, Dover, Newark, Richland, Philadelphia, New York City, Baltimore, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Boston, Seattle, Detroit. This is an extremely deadly situation. Stay tuned. The next emergency message will be a presidential address.